Time to talk about sex, censorship, and visual novels. Yay! This video won't be controversial at all. Really though, I was nervous to talk about this because, short of bringing up Gamergate and Nintya Sarkeesian, or religion, I figure talking about sex on the internet is the next best way to attract trolls and start flame wars. Please try and keep things moderately civil in the comment section. I really hope I don't regret this later. Anyways, there's a couple of reasons I'm going to be discussing this whole topic despite my misgivings. First, I've noticed that for a number of VNs on Steam, all the negative reviews have been centered on, "Where are my 8 scenes? Why did you censor them?" Given that this is such a prevalent complaint, I think it's worth talking about. Secondly, in some of my own visual novel reviews, I've been criticized for my comments about hentai scenes in said VNs, so I thought perhaps I should clarify my position. Lastly, I just think this is an interesting topic and would merit some discussion even if there wasn't any controversy around it. Moving on, this video will roughly cover 3 topics: censorship for visual novels, when sex scenes help VNs, and when they are actively harmful. So when is censorship normally used? Yeah. Let me rephrase that as, when can censorship be morally justified and when would we actually want to use it? Well, the general idea is to censor things that will cause more harm than good, like hate speech which incites violence, or media that is so graphic it can be traumatizing. Now let's see how well these ideas apply to censoring in VNs. What harms can we assign to justify censorship? I'm sure some people will say, think of the children. If young people see sex, it will be traumatizing for them. But just having an age restriction on the content deals with this problem. Also, can we just generally get over the idea that people who are buying video games tend to be little kids who need to be protected? Over 70% of gamers are over the age of 18, so trying to restrict mature content in any type of gaming media out of concern for the children suggests a lack of understanding of the media's audience. Another argument that can be made is that anything that portrays females in an even moderately sexual manner must be chauvinistic, and therefore promote sexist ideals in society. This is a load of bunk. Strong female characters don't stop being strong the moment they have sex, and while women certainly should not be portrayed as sex objects, they don't immediately become one after having sex. Concerns about sexism in any genre of media should be focused on critiquing bad writing for female characters and not removing their sexuality. It's silly that I have to say this, but sex is healthy, happy, and normal, and in no way should its portrayal constitute a harm as long as it's consensual. So, why do platforms like Steam and localization companies like Moe Novel insist on censoring their content? Well, for Japanese companies like Moe Novel, it's likely due to them not understanding the Western market. To quote an interview they gave about their English localization of the visual novel If My Heart Had Wings, "We decided that if we had sexual content, it would not distribute as easily. We want 12-year-old French girls who like anime to know about it as well, and make it so that there is no problem appealing it to these girls." Given that statement, it would appear that they're getting their target market for the English translation of a Bishoujo game mixed up with the target market for a French translation of an Otome game. Also, from my experience, female anime fans like hentai just as much as male anime fans do, apart from being a bit more into yaoi. Girls like sex, guys. Next, onto Steam. They generally have mandated the censoring of VNs by banning games from their storefront that feature porn and inappropriate or offensive content. Now, under US law, which I'll be using since Valve is based in the US, porn is regulated by the legal standard that governs the concept of obscenity. And for something to be deemed as such, it must be utterly without redeeming social value. I would argue that in no way are VNs with sex scenes such as Grisaya utterly without redeeming social value. I happen to think that a good story does constitute a redeeming social value. Also, in terms of offensive content, I would just like to point out that Steam has allowed hatred on their service, in which you play as a homicidal psychopath with the goal of slaughtering as many innocent civilians as possible. Oh, and of course, they also have loads of games that include disembowelment, decapitation, and torture. I'll be honest, I fail to see how a hentai scene is more offensive than graphic serial killings and torture. To be fair, this may not be entirely Valve's fault. Many Steam users have their Steam account linked to their PayPal account, and PayPal's acceptable use policy states that your account can be frozen if you use it for certain sexually oriented materials or services. Obviously, Steam doesn't want to have its PayPal users' accounts frozen because of something that they bought on Steam. It would be a PR nightmare. I do think, though, that they could get something worked out with PayPal if they tried, though, just because I'm pretty sure PayPal didn't create this policy with visual novels specifically in mind. Lastly, for all the people who want to prevent the great evil of viewing sexual activities, I would just like to point out that anyone who has access to the internet already has more access to porn than they could ever watch. So censoring visual novels is a complete waste of time from that perspective. Now that that's been said, I'd like to talk about how the inclusion of sex can actually add to the quality of a VN. Please note that this discussion is focused on visual novels with plot and not nukije. So, as much as I like sweet all-ages romance that you can see in anime, there's always some things that they just can't do well. I always find it obnoxious in a romantic plotline where after all the build-up and development through the story, the characters kiss, and that's the end. That's a pretty sad climax to a story. I really do appreciate when stories take the relationship beyond that point. A heck of a lot happens in relationships after couples get serious and become intimate. Fairy tales aside, there is never just, oh, we hooked up. Now time for our happily ever after. As anyone who's ever been in a serious relationship will tell you, most of the hard work happens after you hook up, and visual novels can actually explore this territory when they're allowed to include sex scenes as part of the story. Also, as much as there is the fapping aspect for readers, sex scenes also can be very romantic if done right. If done right, when characters agree to be intimate with their partner, it's an indication of their complete trust and love for that person. It's saying, I love you, I have faith in you, and I want to be with you. Let's be frank. A kiss on the lips doesn't have quite the same impact, nor does fading to black over explicit scenes. Sex is part of developing a relationship, and I think you lose a lot when you skip it completely. Okay, moving on from all the positive chatter, let's be frank, a lot of VNs do their sex scenes terribly. If you have a scene that is completely unconnected from the plot, I have no problem with saying it's actively harming the VN. Some easy examples of this are any hentai dream sequences that occur. These further the plot in no way whatsoever and do nothing for the characterization either, other than confirming that yes, indeed our protagonist is a horny teenager. Surprise, surprise. More generally, I take issue with any of the scenes where there isn't a proper lead up to the hentai scene. Hey, I just met you and this is crazy, but here's a condom, so bleep me baby type scenes just feel jarring and break the immersion of the story. If you want the readers to take your story seriously at all, you need to have some at least semi-plausible reason for the hent scenes to be included. On a similar note, I also object to H scenes that are so long that they disconnect you from the plot, or where you have a bleep ton of them in a row. I mean, as hot as this scene is once in a while, you only need so much panting and moaning at a time before it becomes really obnoxious. So in summary, the TLDR of this whole thing can be broken down into 3 points. 1. Steam, why the hell are you censoring VNs when you allow hatred on your service? 2. Sex can be great for plot. And finally, 3. Context for sex, please, pretty please. And that wraps up everything I had to say. Thank you for listening. If you have any comments, I'd love to see them below. But no trolling or flaming, please and thank you. Cheers!